I'm Priya.
Hi, and I'm Daniel, and you're watching Everyday Resonance, where we look at how we can align with our highest self in the world, just in the face of the ups and downs of what the world brings. And Priya, what do we focus on this program?
Everything in the human experience, from love to sex, relationships, work, spirituality, friendships, you name it, and I hope that we cover it.
Yeah, lots of great topics. And today we have a great guest. We're in the midst of focusing on love resonance, and right now the topic is conscious relationships. And actually, we're just so grateful to have Brianna McWilliam with us today. We're about to go live with her to ask her some questions around what, Priya? What are we talking with Brianna about today?
Such a powerful topic today on different attachment styles. And if you don't know what they are, please stay tuned and maybe learn a little bit about yourself, perhaps partners, or even those that you have had relationships with in the past.
Yeah, and related to that, the scenario could be, though, where both partners are insecure. And I think, Brianna, as you see time and time again, it takes a lot of time to resolve the inner patterning that leads to secure. And so maybe one of the insecure partners says, look, I realize, my internal state is either anxious that you're going to leave, or maybe, wanting to avoid intimacy. And therefore I want to work on it. I want to work on it myself. And then in the context of relationship, and potentially the other one is, so I would say that's being conscious, but yet they're not healed yet. They're not necessarily in a place where they're able to, work in a secure way with these patterns. Whereas the other person then says, like, oh, well, I don't feel that I have any issue around this and I'm fine and I don't want to work on it. So that would be kind of like an imbalance of one partner saying no and the other one saying yes.
Well, it's not quite, it's actually the same thing. Yeah. Because you're saying you're not conscious, there's something not right, we need to work on this in order for this to be better. So you've set up a relationship of
Anxious
A
avoidant.
to B, and you're examining the distance between A to B, and you're saying, not right, not right, not right, not right. I need this thing to happen before I can feel like this is what I deserve.
Yep.
Or before I can feel like I'm getting what I want, or before I can feel like X, Y, Z. And that's not any different than how we are describing an unconscious way of being, which we would have to explain on the other end of that as be lacking in free will, which is to say that we're operating from a place of automation. So my happiness is dependent upon my external circumstances. And you just kind of voiced aloud that same premise with pretty words and insight attached to it.
That's interesting. Just a little bit more down that path, because I feel like actually it's, I think there's so many anxious, or there's so many insecure people in the world. There are many secure as well. So from the insecure place, the act of starting to say, like, okay, I like choosing to acknowledge it and then starting to look inward consciously at the patterns that are arising, to me, that's an element of consciousness. Now that person's not going to be over this idea of seeking outward or pushing away outward for their own inner security yet, because it takes years from what I've seen and what I've researched to really get to a place to where that's more functional. But the act of starting to recognize it is what I'm referring to. One person saying, yeah, I can see in the context of our relationship, there are challenges here. I'm not perfect. I have these issues. In fact, it's very difficult for me to get out of it, but I want to try, and I see it. So I thought, that what we agreed on was kind of the first step, but I'm hearing a little differently. Maybe I just described it differently. I'm not sure, but yeah, go ahead.
It's a first step because it's an assessment, right? That's more or less an assessment of where you're at. But then what you recognize in the assessment is you're still, even the person who's saying, I'm looking at this and I want to work on it, just the notion that I need to work on something is sort of a disallowance of what it is, right? So what if what it is in this moment is actually what it is, quote unquote, supposed to be? And so for example, let's say that we might describe an unconscious thought to be, I cannot be happy unless you do what will make me happy. And if you cannot do what will make me happy, then I cannot love you. And if you do not fulfill my needs, then I have no use for you. You are not lovable to me. And this is kind of like when someone says, well, if I can't have all of you, I'll have none of you. I have enough friends, right? Or similarly, I cannot be happy unless you do what would make me happy. And if only I could make myself good enough, then perhaps I can inspire you to become more of what I would have you be. And if you are not succeeding in what I would have you be, then I must have failed in loving you in some fashion. I must be deficient in some way because you have this power over me, so why don't I have this power over you? Thus, I must remain with you no matter what to prove my unconditional love, because that will make me enlightened, and because only then will I be worthy. And I will finally know my worth when you finally change. And so this is, in essence, a form of bondage. Mm-hmm. It's kind of an ego attachment, and it gets tied up in the biological attachment. So for another example, here's a reasonable biological attachment need, which might also be an expression of a conscious romantic desire. I would like to meet a partner who enjoys spending time with me, respects me, who likes to share their ideas, and the sex is amazing, right? So here would be an unreasonable example of an unconscious ego-based attachment, which may have evolved from an insecure biological attachment. So I can only be with this person. This person is the one. I just know it. If I can't make this work, then I can't make it work with anybody. Once they leave me, they'll just marry the next person anyway. I better make this work, or I'll either die alone or never meet someone who makes me feel the same way.
These are such stories that we tell ourselves. Wow.
Right.
One more time, I wanted to kind of drive home that a conscious or secure, I just want to make sure that I heard this right, is basically two people who are able to, in a romantic relationship, meet each other where they are. So they're meeting their own emotional intelligence, meeting themselves, and saying, I see what's showing up for you, and I'm still here?
Mm-hmm. Yes, that's a great way of putting it.
Nice.
Okay.
Good job, Priya.
Okay.